You're listening to Non-Partisan Hacks, or watching.
If they're watching, they're also listening, Joel.
We practiced that one, and that really landed very well. Nicely done, Sean. The Politics and Policy podcast about good government from the local level on up. I'm Joel Grenz, a City of Parksville councillor.
I don't know if we can say we practice it. It did happen just once before the show. And I'm Sean Wood, also a Parksville councillor and mayoral candidate for 2026. Today we're going full civics class on you, but fun civics class. No overhead projectors.
Are overhead projectors not fun?
A lot of the people probably don't know what those are, Joel.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So, different things going on. There's a leadership race happening in BC right now, and that got us thinking about that nobody really teaches you how to vote in elections. And we did a podcast episode, how to run. So you're thinking of running in a local election. Today we're going to talk about you're thinking of voting in an election. And so we're going to talk about how to vote, what are the good things to look for in voting, and how do you think about it?
We should also, I'm just ad-libbing here, but we should also add why you should vote. A quick disclaimer before we get this going. The views here are our own and don't represent the City of Parksville. If we accidentally solve democracy in 45 minutes, that's purely coincidental.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Thank you for the coffee, Sean. So Sean today used his fancy ratchet coffee maker to ratchet me some coffee.
It's not a ratchet, it's a Flair 58 Plus and Peter Milbar. If you come to my house again to record, I think I can handle making you coffee this time.
No tea this time.
No tea.
This coffee is actually really good, so well done.
Yeah. I learned from my wife.
Yeah, you can lever some coffee.
Yep.
All right. Well, so today we're going to talk about voting and how do you decide who to vote for. Sometimes people vote based on all kinds of factors, or people do vote based on all kinds of factors, and we want to nail down which ones are kind of the ones to really think about when voting so that we get the best possible government we can, because end of the day, the people you vote for are going to be making decisions on your behalf. So how do we make sure we get the best people into that position? So maybe we'll start with local government and think about what's the difference between voting locally versus provincially versus federally. What are some differences there? Sean, maybe toss it to you to think about that one.
Yeah, locally there are a few cities that have parties involved, but for the most part, I would say 99% of local government voting across Canada is not partisan, not party related. You're voting for an independent mayor, independent regional director, electoral area director, or county director, or a councillor. Non-parties, they have party leanings possibly. They could be attached to a provincial or federal party, but 99% of local government not attached to a party, which in our opinion here at Non-Partisan Hacks is great because they don't have to toe a party line or party policy, and they can kind of vote with their conscience and speak with their conscience anytime.
Yeah, and you actually, even where you do have parties, those parties are often just one election parties. For example, in Vancouver, there's a new party called the Vancouver Liberals. It's not a party that existed before. Actually, maybe like 80 years ago or something it existed, but there hasn't been a Vancouver Liberals party. But that party, I'm sure the name was chosen for a specific reason because the federal Liberals are pretty popular right now, so why not ride on that name? I guess we saw a similar thing happening in the provincial election with the federal Conservatives being pretty popular at the time. And so the provincial Conservative Party did quite well based on that name, even though they're not really in any way connected.
Yeah, not officially affiliated. A lot of the times those slates that happen, say in the city of Vancouver, it's because when you are going to run in a gigantic city of 500,000 people for a $2.2 billion city budget, if you run as a slate, you will be able to raise money for a team. You can run as a team. You can have a team website. And really, from my understanding, and I haven't run in the city of Vancouver, without a slate, you really don't have a chance. And so that's why you see mayoral candidates putting together teams and slates in Vancouver.
Yeah, because you can pool, actually, the donation limits. You can kind of pool the limit of the money you can use and spend on the campaign. You can pool it amongst all the candidates and get the benefit of sort of sharing resources and that kind of thing. So that saves some money, and then you can also raise more money when you put all the candidates together. Maybe on the Vancouver front and the party front, there's a kind of like a third way, which is in Vancouver for a long time there was a group called the Non-Partisan Association, the NPA, which did elect a number of councillors and mayors over the years under that banner, and it's not really a party so much. The name is interesting because it's non-partisan association, and I don't know the full history on it, but what I do understand is that it was a way to get good candidates to run for council and mayor. The non-partisan association has a board and has sort of a structure to itself that's able to raise money to help good people get elected.
And vet.
And that's the key one as well, is that they vet candidates in order to kind of be that first layer of gauntlet that you have to go through in order to run, which I think is actually a very important one. And that's a very important role that parties play. When parties are working right, they are a filter that prevents people from running that maybe shouldn't be running. Within a party, you'll know each other. You will have certain standards around policy, ethics, all kinds of things that are important to that party. And they're able to vet the candidates that would be able to run under that party. And that's a very important role, I think, in democracy for parties, is being that initial filter so that you don't even get to the ballot under that party name unless you've made it through that party's process. And so that's where the non-partisan association, I think, is a really good idea, is it allows people who maybe, you weren't thinking of running, but you would be a good person to run. You'd be a good counselor, be someone that would be good in that role. And the non-partisan association finds those people and vets them and gives them money and support in order to get elected.
And can you have partisan leanings and they still will vet you, or is that one of the things that might not allow you to get greenlit?
No, I think you can have partisan leanings for other levels of government for sure. Everyone does, but what it does is that the association itself is non-partisan. They're not interested in saying, oh, we're going to put forward a slate of people that all are very, liberal or NDP or conservative. Maybe they have a mix of people who are affiliated in different ways in different levels of government or parties and other levels of government, but it allows for them to put forward a slate that they think would be a good slate to run the city.
And we saw provincially, we see established parties that have pretty rigorous vetting processes. They'll hold candidate nomination contests in ridings, and just to be their candidate, you had to jump through a bunch of hoops. But we also saw, say, the BC Conservatives, who started out with 0 candidates. Then they had John Rustad, and then they had Bruce Banman, and then they had to rush and get a bunch of candidates out the door. And, I think it's arguable that they didn't have a great vetting process.
Well, we had John Rustad on the podcast, the leader at the time, and he actually did say that it wasn't the best vetting process.
And so vetting processes are important, but at the same time, if we're going to have a slate, say, in the City of Parksville, you better know who is on your slate, because that might be restricting your chances of being elected if they're reputation in the community isn't great. And so slates can be good and they might be not so good, depending on who is on the slate. And of course, you and I have both chosen to run without a slate here in the City of Parksville. And I don't know, when was the last time we saw a slate in the City of Parksville? Do we... I think there's some kind of unofficial slates there might have been in the past, and maybe they still is in other cities where say if there's 7 people at the table, mayor and council, maybe there's kind of, a tighter group within that. I don't really like that idea because it kind of starts to feel like a pseudo slate. And I like to think that anyone at our table is going to bring an independent lens and voice to any issue, and any issue is dealt with on its own. I just think that that's better governance.
Well, yeah. The other thing, though, is that when you are at the council table, you're supposed to be making all all of the decisions in public.
Yes.
So when you have a party at the local government level, and then that party is starting to make decisions amongst themselves before they actually get to the council table, that can become a problem. And we've seen some concerns raised about that in Vancouver several times, including during this current term, where decisions are made behind closed doors within the majority party, and then they go out and all vote together. So that's the sort of thing that can happen when you have parties. That's the different though when you have the non-partisan association. The idea on that is to help support candidates get elected, but not actually be a party once they are elected. They're not supposed to be like colluding or working together in a way that makes decisions not in public.
Yeah, that comes to the caucus idea, which we see in the province and we see at the federal government, is that caucus goes behind closed doors. They have Treasury Board behind closed doors. They have the Premier's office behind closed doors. And you don't get that transparency that you get at local government, ideally with no caucus, even though Vancouver City has caucus and they have their own charter. So I don't know how deep we want to get into that or how much we want to speak to that. But
this is a good pivot though into our next point, which is to talk about parties and platforms, which is kind of like the menu versus the kitchen. So what is the value of a party platform? Is it a promise? Is it like a mandate and direction, or is it a wish list?
I mean, personally, for my own motto is I don't promise anything, because especially at the local government level, but even at other levels, I don't know how the other people at the table are going to vote. And so I can't speak for that. I can kind of speak for the direction that I would like to see. But making promises is, that's how promises get broken. And I'd rather not break any promises by not making promises. I can talk about a subject and we can talk about the direction that I would like to see. But at the same time, there's going to be 6 other people. There are 6 other people at the table. And I can try to pull their vote in a certain way, but they're going to have their own vote. So I think promising at local government level without a slate or without a party is a little bit of a precarious position to be in, whereas the parties can kind of whip their votes, if we wanted to get into that. And so when you see a party platform, that's how the party is going to vote, because the candidates are vetted and they are on board with the party, and it's kind of party first before their independent vote. Yeah, I
think of when you say maybe have an issue with your car and you call different mechanics. So you can call several different ones and say, hey, what do you think? I hear a pinging sound under the hood. What do you think it is? What can we do about it? Can you solve my problem? And I can call 3 different mechanics, and over the phone, they'll all be like, how do I choose which mechanic to go with? Like one of them sounds like he's very friendly. Sounds like he knows what he's talking about. And then I call a different one, and she is very specific about what it is that is going on based on what I've explained. And then you get to the actual mechanic. So you choose one, and then they actually get in under the hood, and then they'll be like, oh, well, no, this is totally different than what I thought it was going to be. Now that I'm under the hood, I see that all these other things are going on, and it's not actually the thing that I thought it was. So you get a similar thing happening in government where you're choosing to vote for somebody based on what they're saying and what they're promising that they can do, but are you actually looking at whether they have the credentials or the capabilities or the knowledge or the history to be able to do that? How do you determine that? And once they get into office, all the promises they made could be completely thrown out of the window, either because they choose to throw it out the window, or because when they get there, they either can't do the things they promised, or they see things are different now that they're there.
And we see that with provincial policy. There's maybe new information, or the situation changes and they have to pivot on provincial policy. We see it at local government. We receive new information all the time. And so then, your position on something might change as new information comes in. That's just another reason why I think it's a treacherous kind of position to choose, that you're going to promise a certain thing and then there's new information. You're like, you kind of want to leave your doors open for discussion around the table, respectful discussion, hearing from other people. That's new information that Joel Grenz brought to the table. I'm going to add that. Okay, that kind of changes my mind. Open mind is also another thing that we sit at the table with. So if you're promising things ahead of time without knowing the information and knowing what the mayor or other councillors are going to say, how much of an open mind are you having if you've already made promises on a certain thing when you get to the table? And we try to sit at the table with an open mind, even though we might lean a certain way on a certain topic. I love hearing about different positions from different people with different lenses and different lived experiences, etc. And I really try to have an open mind and be able to change my opinion that I might have gone into the meeting with.
Yeah, and so then if it's not the promises that you're voting for, then what do you vote for becomes the question. And I do have some strong opinions about that, is that you actually do need to think about the resume and the character of the people that you're voting for. Because anybody can promise anything, and they can get up in front of a microphone and all candidates and say, oh, I'm going to make housing affordable, I'm going to give everyone $1,000 grocery rebate or whatever. Anyone can say that. But what qualifies to actually be able to do that?
Government-run City of Parksville grocery stores with subsidized pricing.
Yes, we can do that. Okay.
Wait, so who pays for the subsidized if we're going to open a couple of grocery stores run by the City of Parksville? We're going to hire staff by the City of Parksville. Who pays for all that? The other property taxpayers,
well,
right?
And then even if you can get them to pay for it, how do you, as a candidate and now elected to office, what experience or capabilities do you have to actually deliver the thing that you promised?
Well, I'm going to get elected on that mandate, and that means that all the other candidates will have to vote in favor of this idea, even though they're not running with this idea. So how does that work?
Yeah, well, that's another one of those layers, right? So that's where, when you think about who to vote for, and I tried to do this when I ran as well, is to try to put forward what it is about my background and experience and education or life experience, whatever, that is applicable to the role that I'm applying for. Just like you would go to any job interview or anything like that and say, okay, this is my history and background that is relevant to the thing that you want to hire me for. And here's the evidence that that I have this background and capability and knowledge or whatever, character. So there are a bunch of different things you could look at. For example, if you were to buy something from Facebook on Facebook Marketplace, you would look at the reviews of that person before you actually go meet with them, right?
Reputation.
Exactly. And but we don't do that always when we think about electing people. We might be thinking about the things that they're promising us. Or
that sounds good.
Right? Oh, that sounds good.
Cheaper grocery stores.
Yeah, or they're going to smite my enemies the way I want them to be smited. Is that past tense of smiting?
I'm not sure. Not many people use the word smite, Joel.
Oh.
Just you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or like the King James Bible or something.
Thou thee.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you're just smiting, then that, who will smite my enemies? And so
we're getting at, there are ideas and then the ability to carry through on those promises or those ideas.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what is it that you have in your background and competence, capabilities, history that is useful to have at that table where you do make those decisions? And that's less about promising certain things will come about if you're elected, and more about saying, this is the type of person I am, this is what I bring to this role, and this is the kind of character I have. So, like, here's my credit rating, for example.
For instance, we've spoken about BC Housing coming forward with non-market housing funding that this council unanimously approved. City staff have helped push the permits and development permits through. We're hoping for the best for Lions Housing, and then all of a sudden we see the province has a lack of funding and doesn't do the funding intake. And so we've also seen Bill 44 stuff. We've seen Airbnb stuff. These are things that come to council just in our term that we couldn't speak to really during the all candidates meetings or upcoming as we got closer to the election, because you don't see that stuff coming. And so what you really want is people who can kind of roll with the punches at what's going to come in the next 4 years. And that has little to do with what they're kind of promising and much to do with their character and their resume and how you think they'll be able to handle situations that we don't see coming. Because that's going to happen.
Yeah, and it also relates to whether you can trust that person.
Sure.
And end of the day, you are electing someone who is acting on your behalf. They're like your agent. And just like a real estate agent or any other kind of person doing work on your behalf, the most important part of that whole relationship is trust. And so you can make any promise you can. I mean, we've seen maybe you could speak a little bit about what's happening in the U.S. Someone gets elected and says that they're going to do all kinds of things or not do all kinds of things. And then when they get in, they do or don't do the things that they said they weren't going to do or do. So that is the real trick. And the question then is, okay, how do we elect people that we can trust? And so there are different, signals you can give around that. But I don't know, like what are some ways that you can actually tell if you can
just get to know the person as much as you can. I think that's a pretty important part of it. Obviously, you can read what they submit to, say, the paper during an election. You can go to the all candidates debates. If they come to your door, you can chat with them and ask them anything you want to ask them and see how they handle the question, see how they handle tough questions, see where they are on certain subjects, get to know the person. I think we underestimate the kind of gut instinct that people have because they got so far in life by having a pretty good gut instinct on people. I kind of say never underestimate people's BS detectors because I think they're actually pretty good. That's how they're kind of not still alive, but that's how they've survived so far in their life is by having a pretty good gut instinct about a person. Hard to do if you don't chat with the person in person. At the door is kind of the most personable experience. Maybe before or after and all candidates, you get to chat with them. Other than that, if you listen to their podcast, maybe you get to know them a little bit. If you read what they submitted to the paper or their social media feeds, there's a variety of ways you can kind of get little glimpses in. But some of those things are pretty easy to, the person's not really committed to what they're typing on there. I could, take a picture of, me smiling and that doesn't, maybe I'm not happy that day. I try to be as sincere as possible, but there's ways that people can, kind of submit something that is pre-written to the paper for their submission for, to become a candidate in an election. So I'm a big fan of in-person and chatting with people, whether it's for a coffee, and obviously you and I do coffees with people if they like. That's one of the best ways I like connecting with people is you sit down and have a coffee with them at a coffee shop. So I'm a big fan of in-person, and I think the quality of that authenticity or the gut check that people can do, it lessens as you get further away from the in-person for me. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, it's a little trickier to do that at scale, but we do vote for at the local, whether it's federal or provincial, you don't have the in-person capabilities with maybe the leader of that party, so prime minister candidate, and a lot of people do vote based on the leader, but you do have the person you're sending who's the representative from the community that you're sending there into government, and so that is, you can do a bit more of the in-person thing there, but there are other indicators for sure, like looking at what kind of history they've had in terms of their employment or their family, maybe who they associate with, what kind of community involvement they have. Those are all good indicators of the character of that person and their capabilities, which, again, I think those are the most important things. Anyone can promise anything they want. Anyone can say they can do anything. We're going to build stadium in Parksville. Like, I can say that. I could run on building a stadium in Parksville. But do I actually have the capabilities of doing that? Is that something I even can execute on? That's not clear. But I can say things that are about my past that are true. And so I think that's where it's really important to think about. You
should say things about your past that are true.
Well,
you should do that.
I can. I could.
You touched on something, kind of the 6 degrees of separation. If you know someone who knows someone,
for sure,
that can help. If you have a trusted person already in your circle who knows someone, then great. Maybe it's 2 degrees of separation there, but maybe there's 3 degrees and you know someone who you trust, who also has someone who they trust and knows the person. And I think that plays into local government a lot. As we said, less so provincially and less so federally.
And that's what endorsements are. You get, someone who's known will endorse someone else, and that way, okay, there's a trust thing there. But that to me is so much more important than the promises. So that's where we do have a section here, promises, lies, and the gap in between. So is politicians lie actually a fair accusation then that we can make against politicians?
I would definitely say that some do. I think it is. I think that sincerity is important. I also think that it's important to know all of the information. Politicians lie, actually fair. Obviously, politicians are not perfect. It's like saying, do people lie? What I find interesting about politicians lie, they're all liars. Okay, well, what does it take to be one? Well, local government, it takes 2 signatures. So if you want to see what the job is like, get 2 signatures and put your name down and run. Because there's a lot of people out there who you can tell by their comments, say on social media, that they think that they would be better at being a councillor or a mayor or an MLA or an MPP or a premier or prime minister or an MP, but for some reason they're not running. Why is that? So you're saying that you have the answers and your character is better and you have the CV, you have the experience to get things done, but you're withholding your name from being that champion for the public. Well, that sounds like it's that's a big warning sign. Or why are you holding back? Put your name down, run.
Yeah.
And then you get to actually experience the position. And then you get to see all of the information, all the risks and benefits on a given policy, all the things that get thrown at you during a term that you didn't see coming. And then you get to be that politician who obviously is better than all the rest of the politicians. But there's a reason you're not doing that. Why is that?
Yeah, and that comment that you mentioned there also speaks to the trust factor and whether people trust the people that are in office, and those people. That's where it becomes the most important factor in who you elect into those roles. Is, do you trust them? Because if you don't trust them, then everything is lost. So we have to try to make sure that we elect people. When you're voting, ask yourself, is this someone that I can trust to do things on behalf of me and my community, as opposed to, again, the big promises they make. So do politicians lie? Well, in some ways, we actually can incentivize lying if we elect people based on their big promises that they make. So if we say...
setting them up to fail.
Well, exactly. Like they're not going to be able to deliver the stuff if you're voting based on those those big promises.
The City of Parksville is going to have subsidized grocery stores.
Yeah.
Make groceries cheaper.
You're going to create lying politicians because they're not going to be able to deliver that. It won't make groceries cheaper.
Nationally, though, we can have subsidized grocery stores.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't explored the topic enough to, but if I did get into that position where I was voting on that, and I would be exploring the topic, and I would hope that I build trust with the constituents in our community, that I would make a decision around that topic that is in the best interest of the community. Yep. And then the other piece of that, though, and when you do have the trust, is sometimes when politicians do things, make decisions, government makes decisions and takes things in a certain direction, if you have that trust, then they can do things that are maybe a little bit unexpected or outside of maybe what they were promising to do. But you also have to maintain that trust and keep the lines of communication open, and explain to the public why you're doing the things you're doing in order to maintain that trust. And that's something that it's hard to do, and it's hard to get through all of the misinformation that floats around in social media, and even newspapers don't get things right all the time because they don't actually have the same information that we have. So it is a tricky thing. That's part of the reason we do the podcast, is to be able to try to explain what exactly is going on behind the scenes and how we get to where we get to in terms of decisions and what the processes are and what all the roadblocks can be.
I mean, being involved, I did want to chat a little bit about why should people vote? I mean, we see voter apathy. We see, say that all politicians are liars and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. It does matter to get out there and vote. One of the older sayings is, if you don't vote, then you can't complain. Yeah. If you want to have an opinion on what's going on in your city or your province or your country, then get out there and vote. If you have to spoil your ballot, then go do that. Sure. But at least get out there. There's always conversations, and I think the NDP convention, this came up as a resolution, should we fine people $50 for not voting?
This
Australia,
would be federally. Australia has mandatory
does it. It's about
voting.
$50 or something.
Yeah.
It's enough to be kind of painful. So you just go out and you people fought and died for the ability to have a democracy where you can go and vote. So go do it. And so when you go vote, I think you commit a little bit of yourself to actually paying a bit more attention as well. And hopefully, engagement probably, I would argue, makes things run better. When people are not engaged, I don't think things get better when voters are not engaged, whether it's local government level or provincial or federal level. Obviously, you and I pay attention to a lot of all of those levels, probably more than most. But even if you can find time to pay attention to a little bit of local government level, you'll probably feel like you're a bit more involved and engaged in your community. And if you can reach out to a councillor or the mayor and maybe have a coffee with them, you'll feel like, oh, hey, I spent some time with that person and they listened, and I actually saw that they mentioned my point in a meeting, that it can easily happen because I didn't think of something and have a coffee with someone and they're like, yeah, that's sure. A really good point. And then I mention it. Hey, I spoke to someone and I heard this. And so get involved. Don't take voting and democracy for granted, and get out there and have a coffee with the candidates as we're coming up to a municipal election, and get involved, spend a little bit of your time. I know it's painful and no one really wants to, even talk about politics, or, people don't want to talk about politics and all of that stuff, especially as we go into spring, summer, and then you come back from summer, and then we're going to be campaigning for this local government election in BC.
Yeah, but we do have a democracy, and whatever government we get is a reflection of the people who voted in that election. And so if you don't like the government, it's just reflecting back what people voted for in terms of the people they put in those positions. So I think it's very important that we actually take our own responsibility as voters. So when we go vote, we should be thinking about the type of person, because we only have a few options ahead of us in terms of the ballot. So which person do I want representing me? What kind of values did they bring there? What kind of integrity do they have? What kind of background, experience, knowledge, all that? What do they have, and how will they, which one of those people on option will represent my interests and our community, and thinking widely for the kind of future that we want? And so it is, if you get what you vote for.
And it takes courage to be in this role. It takes courage to be on a microphone. It takes courage to be a public figure on social media. It takes courage to meet people for coffee. And if you have all the ideas and you're just typing them on social media, make sure you do a courage check that you'd actually put your name down and run. If you know better than all of the councillors, mayor, MPs, MLAs, premier, put your name down and run, because you have more courage, right? And you have all the ideas and you can get stuff done. So what's holding you back? Get involved.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good place to inspire people to to run.
I'm kind of guilting them into it.
Yeah,
but,
you should run.
But there's, courage is a big part of it, and you can't be scared of a microphone, and you can't be scared to be a public figure in this role.
Well, and even if you don't run, you can still get involved and support people, and then that actually is a critical role as well. So definitely encourage folks to get involved, not just the vote. The vote is kind of the culmination of community involvement. But
the lowest bar, is it?
It's like the lowest. Well, it could be the lowest bar, or it could be the culmination of your community involvement. Sure. So before we go, I do want to do our pitch, get people to take a look at the website, non-partisanhacks.com, sign up on all the socials. If you think something's interesting that we're talking about here, please pass it along to a friend, or non-voter, or voter.
What do you have here? Vote, an imperfect vote still beats no vote. And that's why I mentioned you can even spoil your vote, but at least you went out to the polls.
Yeah, so with that, we'll call it a wrap on this episode of Non-Partisan Hacks. We do love to hear what you think. We got some good feedback on our last episode, including someone who emailed in who is thinking of running for a higher level of government. She's currently on a school district board and is thinking of moving up to the next level. So wishing you all the best in that decision. Thanks for reaching out. We do love hearing feedback on the show. So please keep them coming.
Yeah, we love all your questions and your feedback. Until next time, please take care of yourself and your community.